my teacher first came to this country, he taught, what is this? And then after about 5 or 6 years, the students were making that very complicated, and he started teaching, who am I? Don't know. So first he taught, what is this? Don't know. Then after a while, who am I? Don't know. Then he noticed Americans made that extremely complicated. Then he started teaching, clear mind, don't know. He's thinking, whatever works, right? So this point, and that was a point actually I wanted to make, which I forgot, which is important. The teachers here all are quite clear and led by compassion. They will teach different ways to meditate. All of them are excellent. So we never make higher or lower. So trust the style of meditation that resonates for you or feels comfortable or feels like a good fit. Do it 100%. And over time, you're going to be exposed to other methods. Try those. The only thing I would suggest is if you pick one, stick with it for that meditation period or that day or that week. If you go, oh, I'm going to try Vipassana meditation, and you're 10 minutes into a meditation period, I'm going to try Zen meditation, clear mind, then you start to note your feet. Don't do that. That's a kind of a toss salad of technique, and then you'll not get the benefit of any of the single techniques. And in my experience as meditation, and this was part of my intended talk, keeping a don't know requires a fairly stable temperament and a stable state of mind, because the human mind doesn't like to sit with ambiguity. None of us like uncertainty. None of us like anything that's ambiguous. Our minds, and maybe it's in our DNA as a species, we want to know, is it black or is it white? Is it poisonous fruit or is it delicious fruit? Is it going to help me live? Is it going to hurt me? So our minds are wired for opposites. And the world is organized in opposites. Night and day, hot and cold, sick and healthy. So that muscle is constantly being trained and reinforced and constantly analyzing our circumstances. Will this ensure my survival? Will this mean my immediate death? Maybe it's not always that dramatic, but sometimes on the 405 at 70 miles an hour, another car's judgment is putting you in immediate danger. You are in jeopardy. So that part of our brain is making opposites, and we hope it will, because that's going to keep us alive. So it isn't that this habit energy of our thinking is bad, it's just not the whole truth. And our practice is, use that ability to think, analyze, cure cancer, drive safely on the 405, use that, but stay fully in the moment, fully in the truth that's happening. Another easy example is we're driving along and we get consumed about some argument we've had with a friend, and if I'd only said this, and maybe the next time I see them I'll say that, and then we drive right past our exit. Because we're not actually driving, we're consumed in this heart-mind conversation in our head. They might not even be in the car, but we're there, we're not actually driving. So those are, from a Zen point of view, sitting, standing, walking, lying down, 24/7 is meditation. Yeah?
And don't meditate in the car. I tried it. It doesn't work well.
Yeah, that's a really good point, especially if it's following your breath. See, one advantage of practicing don't know is it is quite portable. You can be asking, what is this? In the workplace, when the phone rings, when you're suddenly all worked up because a friend has insulted you, before you land on, did they just insult me? You can add, am I sure? If we can slow down our habit energy just enough, we'll actually return to the true moment we're in, not the narrative or story that our heart-mind has created. And the narrative and story can still be there, but it won't be driving us. We'll have some spaciousness around it, and that immediately feels like freedom. It immediately feels like, oh, I have a couple of choices here, not just one. Like that. So, don't know, when the Buddha saw the morning star and had enlightenment, he saw all things have this capacity. He and the star became one. The morning star saw him. This is incomprehensible. All of his cognition fell away, and he completely connected with this universe. And at first he thought this was impossible to teach, because there was no reference point. And as the story goes, some friends of his, he had a visitation by a Brahmin who said, yeah, this is difficult to teach. So first, help people stabilize themselves, help them get out of their suffering, help them see into their suffering, then they become grounded. Then they're able to listen to this other kind of teaching, which is non-dual and is not in the realm of suffering. So as he began to teach, he taught things like the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. These are all teachings with a dualism in them. The Eightfold Path, it's right view, right intention, right speech, right livelihood. So I'm using the word right. Well, that right away makes wrong. Yeah? If I say right, wrong appears. All opposites create themselves. That's another teaching of the Buddhas. So if I'm in pain, I know what pleasure feels like. If I'm depressed, I know what joy feels like. If I'm joyful, I know what depression is. All opposites create each other. They arise, the teaching, the phrase is co-arise. We don't experience them, sometimes we do at the same time, but typically we experience one or the other, but they are all co-arising. So that's a dual view of the world, and to treat that, to have wisdom about that, he gave the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, and lots of additional teachings I don't have time to go into. Once we look into those and we get a little stability, then we're prepared for don't know. We're prepared for a no opposites view. So looking at this Eightfold Path, the first thing that's usually taught is view. And you could say there's a Buddhist worldview, or there's a Catholic worldview, or an Islamic worldview, or an American worldview, or an ancient worldview, or a modern worldview. They're all mistaken. From a practicing point, no view is the correct view. We could say no view is the right view. And what does that mean? That means our heart-mind is so wide, anything we perceive, we're able to see completely with no judgment. We don't let go of discernment, but we don't hold on to judgment. So we make a distinction, but we don't judge the distinction. So no view is challenging. Again, it's ambiguous. It's not a rule that we can live by. So if I'm in a storm of emotions, or cranked up over politics, or have had a big falling out with a group of people or a teacher, I can't keep a question. Everything's too much of a storm. So then simple mindfulness practice is correct. So then having a don't know view is not possible because of this emotion of anger, fear, disappointment, betrayal. So then, follow the breath, feel the body, mindfulness of the breath in the breath, mindfulness of the body in the body, mindfulness of emotions in emotions. That brings us back down to our center, it brings us back down to this place. Then when the storm settles, then it's possible, what is this? Don't know. The don't know is possible to keep. If a person practices with don't know, it gets stronger. And the teaching phrase my teacher would say is put it all down. So some catastrophe at work, my job's in danger, I'm going before human resources, I might lose my job, I try to meditate that morning. His advice would say, let it all go, put it all down. And if one has a really strong don't know center, you can do that. But that's challenging, and that takes a while to work up to. So if I'm all emotionally wrought about my income being in jeopardy, then I can only practice with feeling the feelings in the body, respecting these feelings, looking at that root, where they're coming from, what it has to do with my ambition, my goals, my sense of security, welcoming in all those emotions, tending to them, sending them loving kindness, respect. So there's a kind of dialogue between my created self and the true self. And the true self is kind of parenting or taking care of the created self, the conditioned self. Then once the conditioned self is calmed down, then it can become quiet. And then just our true self. What is this? Don't know. Who am I? Don't know. Clear mind, don't know. It's possible to return to that. Did you hear that? Yeah. Can you see this? So already you see clearly and you hear clearly. That's our true nature. That's the experience of our true nature. The thinking cannot cover it up. It's indestructible. But if we can't be that clear, if we're being controlled by strong emotions or confusion, or we get misinformation from several places, we don't know who to trust, then we can return to the Eightfold Path as a way of strengthening our don't know center and being able to return to it. So the Four Noble Truths, very simple. Life is suffering. That's pretty easy to see. That's bad news. When I first heard it, I really pushed it away. When I was first introduced to Buddhist teaching and it went, life is suffering, I went, no, it's not. I love my kids. I have a great time. I've had a good time with my friends. I enjoy a party as much as anybody else. I don't think life is suffering. But the more I looked at it, I went, oh, life is suffering, because if any of those wonderful things disappear, I'm really unhappy. Oh, what is that? So this thing that's wonderful also is what's going to cause the suffering. So then the second noble truth is we create that suffering, which is also more bad news. Yeah? Oh, it is suffering, and I'm the origin of that suffering. That's really bad news. Yeah? It's not like everything's my fault, but everything is my world. Everything is my universe. And even sometimes our spouses don't have the same universe that we have. And we can't understand why they don't see it the same way. So, first noble truth, life is suffering. Second noble truth, we cause that suffering. The third noble truth, finally, is some good news. Since we cause it, we can uncause it. That's remarkably good news. Remarkably good news. And it begins with just relaxing. And it just begins with the courage to be honest. And it begins with the courage to be kind to all of it. And being kind to our suffering is really hard to do. We're taught to push it away, and reflexively we push it away. But we want to welcome it in. Our suffering is our best teacher. Much better than my talk. Almost as good as silent meditation. So, third noble truth, we cause it so we can uncause it. And then the way to uncause it is the fourth noble truth, which is the Eightfold Path. So, this Eightfold Path, we could talk about it for 5 or 6 weeks. We could do a whole class on each part of the path. Simply put, as a list, which Buddhism is fond of. And it's taught in different order from different traditions. And also, some teachers say right view. Some teachers say correct view. Some teachers say effective view. And so you take your pick, really. Because if we start going, one thing is true and one thing is not, that's what we call attachment to speech. What resonates for you, or what feels true, trust that. Because that means it's resonating with your before thinking mind already. The Eightfold Path is after thinking. It's all this language, it's all this name and form. But your true nature is before thinking. So when you feel a connection between those two, trust it. So for the sake of this talk, we'll say right view. Then next is right intention. Then next is right speech. Next is right effort. Next is right livelihood. Next is right mindfulness. And right meditation. And right action. So a lot of teachers will unpack them in a line. Thich Nhat Hanh does a very beautiful thing of putting them in a circle. Because if we are staying in the right view of no view, that causes right speech to appear. If we're keeping right speech as much as we can, that causes right mindfulness to appear. If we trust our right mindfulness enough, our right livelihood appears. So I like to think of a sunflower and all the seeds in the sunflower. So when we first look at it, there's like this arc that goes to a petal, and then another arc to another petal, and then to another petal, and another petal, and another petal. So as if these folds in the path, folds in the way, are constantly helping each other and kind of causing each other. So if I'm worried about correct speech or efficacious speech, the first component of correct speech is deep listening. If we are listening deeply, our speech will naturally be correct. So if we're wondering what is correct mindfulness, if we just practice mindfulness, it causes itself to be correct. That causes correct action. If you trust your mindfulness 100%. So we don't necessarily manage ourselves. We trust the practice to direct us. So right intention. My intention is to save all beings from suffering. Well, that's incomprehensible. Also includes this being. Yeah? So that incomprehensibility can cause don't know. And that makes my heart-mind really wide. So then when a moment appears, what is the right thing to say to take away suffering? Automatically appears. We don't think, oh, what's the right thing to say? The right thing springs from our compassion. So mindfulness, meditation informs our speech. Our speech informs our livelihood. Our livelihood informs our intention. Our intention informs our action. So look at it, sit with it. If it helps you live your life and navigate it, wonderful. If it doesn't, you can just return to don't know. What is this? And moment by moment, stay clear. Then your true nature will participate with this world, and it helps this world rather than makes things worse.